Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this video is titled A Bad Day in the Airso Circuit. Blue Angel number 4 punches out on the deck, or, as quoted by the lady who was standing next to me during this air show, I bet they do that as part of the show. Now, back in the 70s, when I was contemplating being a military pilot, the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds both were flying the F-4. And the F-4 was just a beautifully impressive aircraft. I just fell in love with that aircraft. And the pilots that fly these aircraft, they're very carefully chosen. These guys are the best of the best, and they're good. You don't get to be a Blue Angel or a Thunderbird by being anything but the best. But there's a lesson for anybody on the continuum of I'm a fantastic pilot down to I'm a beginner, and everybody should fit somewhere on that continuum, that even if you are very good, you can make a simple mistake that has very significant consequences. Now, the Thunderbirds were also flying the F-4 at the same time. And both of these teams, both the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, put on an excellent show. Now, if you ask me who put on the better show, well, being an Air Force pilot, I would have to plead the fifth on that. Now, in my opinion, the F-4 is a challenging aircraft to fly, and I don't think many people will disagree with that. And this opinion is based on my vast experience in the F-4. Well, okay, guys, I'm talking about 10 hours here, 10 total hours, split between the C, D, and the E models, and this occurred out at Edwards in-flight test type of activities. I like to say I have a lot of time in a few aircraft and a little bit of time in a lot of aircraft. Now, I also have time in a Blue Angel F-18. That's me standing there. Now, you may say that's not a Blue Angel paint job, and you're right. What happens when the Blue Angels kind of tire out their F-18s? They hand them on over to NASA, and this is out at NASA Dryden at the time. It's now at NASA Armstrong. But I was I'm a member of Society of Experimental Test Pilots, and I was one of the three paper judges at the National Symposium, and the guy next to me was a NASA test pilot I knew, and he says, "Have you ever flown the F-18?" I go, "No, I haven't." He says, "Would you like to?" And I go, "Yes." And he says, "We'll put together a test mission, have you come up and fly it." So I got to fly it. So I got a little bit of an hour, a little bit over an hour in an F-18, and I must say this is one of the most beautifully handling aircraft that I'd ever flown. But back to the story. Now here's the situation. As you can see, this isn't the way you like to see an F-4. Now let me read you the official uh, transcript, supposedly the official spin of what happened. August 30th, 1970. U.S. Navy Blue Angel pilot Lieutenant Ernie Christensen belly landed his F-4J Phantom at the Eastern Iowa Airport in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with one engine stuck in afterburner during an air show at the airport. He ejected safely while the aircraft ran off the runway. Well, there's quite a bit of that. It's true, but there's one big glaring error there. So let's get to the story here. All right. So this is the Cedar Rapids, Iowa airport, and the show operated off the long runway, runway 27, and the blue arrow points to the touchdown point on runway 27. And I, with a group, with a lot of people actually, was on the other side of the runway, abeam the touchdown point. Now, let's talk a little bit about the F-4. All right, this is the front seat cockpit of the F-4. And you see the gear handle and you see the gear indicator lights there. Wait a minute, you're going, what gear indicator lights? Okay, here's close up. Yeah, McDonnell Douglas didn't do pilots any favor on this. You notice the big gear handle. I mean, there's a manly gear handle, right? And it's got a red knob. Well, most of the time you put a white knob with a red light in it, because if the sun hits the knob comes on red, and you think you've got a problem, and it can be, to the point where you go, well, if I see red in the handle, yeah, maybe it's not a serious situation. It's just the sunlight. But now you look at the gear indicators. Well, these aren't lights. They're little hash things that come down, and that's your indication that the gear is down. It's a mechanical system, very reliable. You don't have any bulbs to burn out, but where it's tucked here, it doesn't really grab your attention. Now here's a more conventional gear system. You got lights. You've got green lights for the gear. You've got an in-transit light. And here's a picture of the cockpit of my Turbo 310R, my Cessna Turbo 310R. And the gear lights are down here in the center, right next to the itty-bitty gear handle there. I've got a red unlock light that's appropriately off, and I got the 3 green lights. I've got nice lights that shine in your face and kind of get your attention. A little bit better than this setup, but I guess if you fly it a lot, you're used to it. But it's not, it's not a glaring lack of a third light or lack of any lights that gets your attention. Now the air show was coming to an end. They had done all the performances, and as usual, it was a spectacular show. The Blue Angels were coming down initial here into their typical, pitch up, and coming around on inside downwind, getting ready to come around the final turn. While that was happening, the two-ship comes by in this slightly non-conventional two-ship wing landing scenario here, and the narrator is talking about, this situation, and he's not really paying too close attention to what the guys are doing landing. And I was told that the narrator has a switch on his mic between the PA that all of us hear and the UHF radios in the Phantoms so he can talk to the pilots. And I noticed Ernie was coming around, and he was the only guy without his gear down, which seemed a little bit unusual, but I thought, oh, maybe he's going to do a high-speed pass or something. And just as he is about to touch down, over the PA comes, "Ernie, gear." Well, then I think the narrator probably realized what he had done and switched, but the Blue Angel came down, and of course he had a very significant flight path vector directed right towards the concrete. And he probably was attempting to do a go-around because the aircraft came, slammed down, and I'm going, oh, this doesn't look good. And I'm looking up the tailpipes, and I see a whole line of flames underneath the wing where this 12 or so layers of paint is burning nicely. And I see both afterburners light. Okay, well, I'm thinking, those are very powerful engines, the J79s, but I don't think they can overcome the coefficient of friction to paint against concrete. So the burners light for just a little bit, and then they go dark. He pulls it out of burner, apparently, because both engines come out of afterburner. They both went dark. There wasn't one stuck in afterburner. No, they both went dark. And looking down the runway, and he starts to slide to the left. Now, there were a group of guys out there with a pickup that were picking up the drogue chutes that the guys deploy to slow him down. Oh, by the way, Ernie did deploy the drogue chute, and it promptly caught on fire and then did a nice spinning nutation as the one side that was burning kind of spun around. But this whole aircraft starts to slide towards the guys standing on the side of the runway, and you can see these guys start running like hell. And it looks like the airplane is going to go off the runway, and it did just a little bit, because when I saw it later, there were corn stalks up the intake of the engine. But just as it was starting to go off the side of the runway, Ernie punches out. Now, first comes the canopy, and it just glints end over end in the sunlight. It was, if anything could be described as beautiful, that was. But to see the canopy go up, and then up he comes under the seat, and he separates, the parachute comes out, and he comes down and lands near the airplane that has now gone off the side of the runway. And of course, the fire trucks are all going out there to assist. Well, the Blue Angels pull up in front of what was the old terminal at Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Of course, that whole airport has been redone, but at the old terminal, they pull up in front, and you know how the Blue Angels, this is not a good day. This is not the kind of day you want to have as lead. So they get out of the aircraft. It's not really a smart, military type walking to the front. They just kind of saunter in front of their aircrafts. The narrator is going on about the Martin ejection seat and how it saves so many lives, which is true, of course. It's a very good ejection seat, except it can be very bad on your back if you have to use it, but it does get you out of the aircraft. And he's talking about the success rate of it. And then he says, and this is a beautiful quote, and then he says, the surviving Blue Angels will be available to sign autographs. And Lee just shakes his head. He goes, like that. They just turn and walk off. Not a good way to end the air show. Well, this was at the time when I was looking at becoming a military pilot, and I was looking at the Navy and I was looking at the Air Force. So I found out a few of these details when just a few weeks later I went up to take a Navy flight officer physical at the Glenview Naval Air Station. And I'm going up there, and of course, all of us knew about this. It was a group from Iowa City, and we were able to corner some people and find the true story as I have related to you here. As I said, I ended up going into the Air Force. Now, when I took the Navy physical, I have a bit of a crossbite, and they said I only had 8 serviceable teeth. That's okay. You only need 8 serviceable teeth, but if I lost one of my serviceable teeth, I could be in trouble. And I'm thinking, if it comes down to biting people, I'm not sure if this is the service I want to be in, because the Air Force really didn't care about my teeth at all. But anyway, that's the story of Ernie, how just a simple, the old saying, there are pilots who have landed gear up, and there are pilots who will, but this simple mistake in front of probably 40,000 people is just not the way to end your Blue Angel career. Anyway, thanks for watching.